So it was a simple question actually for all of you. And the question is, who invented radio?
Tesla.
Ah, I'm very happy you got that right. So welcome this evening, for you and for you only, Nikola Tesla. And I'm hoping he's coming out of that door, because otherwise he's taken a long time coming down from the 3rd floor. Let's hear it. Let's give him a big round of applause. Now let's give a clap for Nikola Tesla. Nikola, 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 Nikola. So Nikola's with us here tonight to spread the word of community and sharing. And I'll hand the microphone over to him just to give us a few words about how it... we don't do wireless in the radio world.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Nikola Tesla. And I welcome you here in the city of Karlovac. This is the city of my youth. I spent 3.5 years here being a student. I came here in 1870 as a 14-year-old kid and spent 3.5 years here during my high school education. I got lucky. Karlovac was at that time very important, very progressive in the manner of education. We had brand new school that was secular, that was very important for that time. And I got lucky with professors. I had one professor, his name was Martin, and he was so physics and mathematics, of course. And he was so dedicated to us students that he was designing and building himself some apparatus regarding electricity. And I had like a brainstorm of ideas and questions whenever he was demonstrating those sparks flying everywhere apparatus in our classroom. After 3 years in Karlovac, I moved to Graz, Austria, and then to Prague, Czech Republic, to further my educations. And then I worked for a few years in Budapest, in Paris, and in Strasbourg. And finally, in 1884, I got the chance to go to America, to live my dream, to go to New York, to meet great inventor. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention his name right now, because further down the road, we didn't make such a good friends as I hoped we could. So, Mr. Edison, of course, I'm talking about Edison. So, America was the land that gave me everything that I needed: support, ideas, flow of information, open-mindedness, and my idea of alternating current that I had in my head as a young student came to life. Regarding radio, if you ask 10 people about who invented radio, 9 of them will tell what is the answer. Marconi, of course. Of course it is. Just one small fact. It's not the truth. Some of you maybe know, some of you maybe don't know. So the story about radio waves, because you are all interested in radio waves, as I remember, the story is very complicated with many players in the field. I'm one of them. So maybe I was 2 seconds or 2 months or 2 weeks, sometimes weeks were very important, ahead of others, but I wasn't the only one. So my first, let's say, practical encounter with radio waves and transmitting and antennas and receivers was in my laboratory. I wasn't even working on it. I was working on Niagara Falls, the great hydroelectric power plant, and I was working on a coil. You all know what the coil is. So my coil was tuned to a frequency of 500,000 hertz, 500,000 oscillations per second, and it was active. And in the far end of my laboratory, I had one similar one tuned to the same frequency, but it wasn't connected to anything. It was just laying there. And to my surprise, when I engaged this one, the other one started making sparks and weird noises. So that was, for me, the first time that I encountered in practice what Maxwell, 20 years before me, theoretized about. So one coil was transmitting, The other, which was tuned to the same frequency, was receiving. So that's the beginning of radio in my life. And of course, the year was 1893. I held a series of lectures. I posted some articles in American Electrical Engineer magazine, and I held the demonstrations. Maybe the most famous one was with the boat. Maybe you heard of that. That was, it's maybe the most famous one. So it was 1897. I submitted my patents to the US Patent Office, and I was waiting for the result to get my patents approved. And while I was waiting, I was giving a demonstration in New York, in one lake. I made a boat, small boat. It was like this big, less than a meter. And I gathered journalists, of course. They are very important in our work. I gathered engineers and general public, people who were wandering through the park. And I gave them mission. You ask a question to my boat, tell it where to go, and it will go there. Of course, I had controls in my hand, and the boat wasn't connected via wires, underwater wires of something like that, because everybody accused me of that. It's not surprising. In those years, maybe 10 people on the planet knew about radio waves and how to transmit and maybe how to receive them. Nobody had any idea how to put it in practice, or even how to use them to operate, to control devices like boats. So I was accused of being a charlatan. I was accused of being a magician of some kind. And we had to pull out the boat out of the water, so there is no wires under the boat. And one journalist, sometimes they are quite, what's the nice word? Provocative. He said, can I ask a mathematical question to your boat? And I said, of course, you can ask it whatever you want. And he said, what is the third root of number 64? And my boat replied, it's number 4, of course. And my boat replied by having 4 flashes on the light on the antenna. So that was miraculous. Everybody was so happy about it. And 2 years later, in the year 1900, my patents came through. I patented over 20 patents, and in that year, little later than my patents were approved, they were approved in the summer of 1900. In the winter of 1900, young Italian guy, I wouldn't call him an inventor, he was a businessman, came to America with his patents, his stuff that he gathered in Europe, and tried to make patents in US soil. He was repeatedly refused and refused and refused and refused because he was using my oscillators, he was using my regulatory devices, he was just using the stuff that everybody knew about in America. So, but he didn't mind. The year 1902 is the year that international transcontinental communication, radio communication was born, because he was using 17 of my patents to send a signal, letter S, so it's 3 dots in Morse code, across the Atlantic, from north of Canada to England. And by doing that, he opened long-distance communication, radio communication to the world. Now, you are here as 120 years later, studying, exploring, learning about electricity, about radio waves, and I applaud you, because each one of you, you are from 25, 26 countries, if I heard correctly. So each one of you are going home tomorrow. And I wish you farewell. I wish you a happy journey home. And most of all, I wish that some of you are teachers, some of you will maybe become a teacher in the future. I wish that you become inspirational to your students as Professor Martin was inspirational to me when I was a 15-year-old child. Because in this world today, maybe more than ever, we need STEM. We need science, engineering, mathematics. We need everything. So I wish you all the best. Thank you for being here for the 7 days in city of Karlovac. And I hope you inspire the next generation of scientists. Thank you.